pieces of information, there are likely some information about referring to them in the course of one's reading and study of Malcolm, including in the autobiography. There are references to some of these events and activities. But what's remarkable about this is that this is most of this material is written by Malcolm. It's in his own hand. This is his thought committed to paper. By way of example, with regard to speeches, there's a common perception that Malcolm spoke extemporaneously, that he would stand and he'd start just rapping. Well, each time that he got ready to do a speech, he'd put together at a minimum an outline of the points that he was going to make. If this material suggests is in fact accurate, this is one of the things that scholars will want to do. Will want to take the text that's there and compare it to the recorded speeches that are around to see the degree to which that was in fact carried through. But it's in terms of material on Malcolm X, by Malcolm X, there's nothing that I'm aware of that's remotely comparable to it that's available for any research and study of his both his life, but most importantly his thought and the evolution of that thought over the years. It really does run from the 60s, from the period that he's in prison, right down to the time of his death. Yes.
Obviously, the Schomburg is interested in acquiring this collection when all of the legal dust has been settled. The question I would put to you is, how large a staff would you envision would be required, and over how long a period of time would that staff be required or need to really put it in proper context? This is a lot of deep material. It requires a lot of study by people who are already informed about the story. Well,
one of the things I guess should clarify is that the function of a research library like the Schomburg Center is not to attempt to interpret the material.
Oh, really?
No. Our job is basically to create some system of order for it so that a person who is coming to study it can move efficiently through the material and make their own interpretations, their own analyses. So our job is not to gather the material and then create, if you will, the Malcolm X story. Mm-hmm. Our job is to find a way of structuring the organization of the material, hopefully following his own sense of order and organization, so that persons coming can, in fact, with relative ease, follow the pattern and the development of this of his thought and of his work. In terms of the amount of time and personnel, etc., required, that really I can't make that kind of judgment because I don't really know ultimately how much material it is. I did, based on a quick review of the material that was published in the catalog, estimate that there are about somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 pages of handwritten manuscripts by Malcolm of various on various issues and subjects, etc. That's what's in the catalog. My assistant who went out to take a look at the material indicated that the last lot, which said there were 12 bankers' boxes, there was a lot of material that was in there that actually had not been described in the catalog. So I don't know what the volume of that is and how much of that is would be appropriate for a research kind of presentation. But it's not of such a magnitude that it would require, more than one or two people working for more than a year. It's probably something more on the order of a couple of people working, it appears, for about 6 months to get it done.
So your mission at the Schomburg is not really to tell the Malcolm X story, as you said, but just to lay out the nuts and bolts of what's available. But isn't context useful to the scholar?
Oh, absolutely, and that's part of what our staff does. I mean, no one would begin to deal with that particular collection until they had read and digested everything that's in the autobiography, because that's Malcolm's narrative of his own life.
I see.
And that becomes a kind of framework for looking at each piece that's there and beginning to think about where it fits in relationship to his narrative of his story. And then you go from that to beginning to kind of flesh out the order of it, and you present to the researcher a brief summary of that, and then everything else is then organized either thematically or chronologically, so that the researcher can move through it as efficiently as possible.
From a man of your stature and a position, how would you value the or assess the importance of this collection as opposed to those of other great figures? Unfortunately, I can't let you answer the question now. You've got a station break to deliberate the answer. We do need to take another break. Please forgive me. We'll be back. Figures in our struggle.
Well, one of the things that's always of concern for scholars, researchers, etc., is what did the individual who is the subject of study, what did they think? What was their voice in this? And I can say, I think without fear of contradiction, that among the 20th century figures in African American history, and I think in American history, Malcolm X is one of the more significant of those figures. Mm-hmm. Certainly during the period of the 60s, he was right up there with King, kind of vying for leadership in a very, very different kind of way. And looked at holistically, they actually just represented two poles of the larger political struggle that the black community was involved in.
Mm-hmm. I was asking specifically, though, what is the size of this collection as opposed to other collections, as best you can assess?
Oh, there are many collections that are much larger.
I.e.?
Well, the Ralph Bunche collection, by way of example, we have, we probably have more than 100 boxes of material.
All right, give me
of
another.
Ralph Bunche material. The John Henry Clark collection, just as another example, it's huge. It's 150, 200 bucks. I mean, large. But these were people whose really two things with Bunche and with Dr. Clark. These were individuals whose lives spanned 60, 70 years or more, and so their collections document that longer period of time, and their mature years basically is from their 20s, early 30s on. Malcolm only lives to be 39 years old, and so what's there for that period of his mature years, when he is in fact leaving a written record of his life, is probably as full a record as we're likely to find. And that's what you look for when you look at the records of an individual, how much of their thought and work is in fact documented over this period of time.
Attorney Fleming, we have established now the value of the collection and the druthers that Mr. Dodson has. The question is, what are the druthers of the family?
The family believes that this collection represents their personal legacy. It's not just property, it's their personal legacy. In the words of Malcolm and Betty's eldest child, Adela Shabazz, the family wants to be the proprietor of their own legacy. So their first desire, of course, is to reacquire what was theirs.